The wind moves across the great plains like a ghost, endless grass bending under a restless sky, whispering through the bones of buffalo and forgotten warriors. This was once the land of silence, until thunder began to ride upon it. Not the thunder of storms, but of hooves. Tens of thousands of hooves, pounding the earth in waves that could shake the soul of any man who heard them. They came like shadows at dawn, like a storm you could not outrun. They were the Comanche, lords of the southern plains, an empire without borders, a people who turned the wild horse into a weapon and the open land into a kingdom. To the settlers, soldiers, and tribes who faced them, they were not men, they were ghosts on horseback, half spirit, half storm. No walls could stop them, no army could contain them. In the mid-18th century, there was no force between the Mississippi and the Rockies as feared, as free, or as unstoppable as the Comanche. They called themselves Namurna, the people. To everyone else, they were the very definition of terror. But to understand their rise, you have to forget everything you know about civilization. The Comanche didn't build cities. They didn't leave temples or stone monuments. Their empire was written on the wind, their history carried in stories, in scars, in the smoke of 1,000 campfires. Their capital was the horizon itself. Their law was the speed of a horse and the strength of an arrow. They were the children of the plains, nomads who mastered the rhythm of the earth better than any people before or after. For centuries, the plains had belonged to no one. Vast, empty, cruel. Even the Apaches, fierce and proud, ruled its edges with caution. But then something changed. A creature appeared that would reshape the destiny of continents. The horse. When the Spanish brought horses north, they couldn't imagine the fire they were unleashing. At first, the horse was a curiosity, then a tool, and finally a revolution. No people embraced that revolution like the Comanche. They didn't just ride horses, they became one with them. They could hang off the side of their mounts, firing arrows under the neck of a galloping stallion with deadly accuracy. Their children learned to ride before they could walk. Their horses were their wealth, their status, their survival. A Comanche without a horse was a shadow without a body. By the 1700s, they had transformed the plains into their dominion, a nomadic empire stretching from the Arkansas River to the Rio Grande. They controlled trade routes, hunted buffalo in vast herds, and made alliances, or war, with whoever crossed their path. The Spanish called their land Comancheria, and it was a kingdom of motion. But this was no static empire of thrones and palaces. It was an empire of blood and thunder, measured not in acres but in fear. The Comanche were raiders, traders, and warriors all at once. They struck with a precision and brutality that made European powers tremble. They could vanish into the prairie like smoke and reappear 100 miles away by sunrise. Mexican villages burned under their raids. Spanish presidios fell silent before their approach. American settlers whispered their name like a curse. But for the Comanche, this was not cruelty. It was survival. The plains offered little mercy. To live, you had to take. To protect your people, you had to be the storm. At their peak, the Comanche were not just warriors. They were the law of the land. Their chiefs commanded respect through skill, not birth. Power was earned in battle, in courage, in endurance. Their camps were alive with motion women tanning hides and shaping tools, warriors sharpening lances, children racing ponies under the endless blue sky. Every moment was training for the next raid, the next hunt, the next season of survival. And yet there was beauty in their world, nights under the endless stars, songs drifting over campfires, laughter in the face of hardship. They were a people who lived fully, dangerously, freely. They knew death was never far away, and perhaps that's why they lived as though every sunrise might be their last. To outsiders, they seemed savage. But to the Comanche, it was the world that was savage. The Spaniards, the Mexicans, the Americans, all clawing for the land that had never been theirs. Every encounter with civilization was another test, another battle between the old and the new. They didn't seek to rule others. They sought only to remain free. Freedom was their god, and the horse was its prophet. Imagine it, riding at full gallop across a sea of grass, the earth trembling beneath you, the wind in your hair, no walls, no masters, no borders. That was Comanche life. That was their empire. But empires, no matter how wild, are never eternal. The same horizon that gave them freedom also carried shadows of their fate. To the east, settlers were moving westward, slow, relentless, and countless. To the south, the Mexicans fought to hold their frontier. To the north, other tribes watched with envy and fear. The world was closing in. But for now, in this golden hour of their power, the Comanche were untouchable. Even the Spanish crown, with its armies and missions, had to negotiate with them. Imagine that, an empire that built cathedrals across oceans now sending gifts and peace offerings to a people with no cities. That's how powerful the Comanche had become. In 1785, Spanish governors in Texas agreed to peace, because war had proven impossible. The Comanche could destroy settlements faster than Spain could rebuild them. They rode wherever they wished. They dictated terms. The great colonial power bowed to a nation without writing, without walls, without fear. But peace never lasted long on the plains. Blood had its own rhythm here, and the Comanche rode to its beat. Raids continued, against rivals, against settlers, against anyone foolish enough to test their boundaries. Their raids weren't just for plunder. They were a way of life, a statement of dominance. When a Comanche war party appeared on the horizon, the sky itself seemed to darken. Villages emptied. Men prayed. Women hid their children. For the Comanche, terror was a weapon as sharp as any lance. They struck swiftly, disappeared into the horizon, and left behind silence. And yet within their ranks there was also order. Every raid had its purpose. Every leader had earned his right to command. Among them, one name would echo louder than the rest. A man who would become the embodiment of Comanche power, the rider who would challenge the world that was coming. His name was Quanah. But his story, and the twilight of the empire, will come later. For now, the plains still belong to the wind, and the Comanches still rule the storm. They are at their height, and every enemy trembles at the whisper of their name. They do not know that history is already turning beneath their feet. The land that made them strong is about to betray them. The white man's iron horse is coming, the railroad, the new thunder. But that is still ahead. Tonight, the campfires burn bright. The drums echo across the prairie. The warriors prepare to ride once more, chasing the horizon, chasing glory, chasing freedom itself. And the wind carries their laughter, the laughter of a people who believe they can never fall. The plains sleep under the moon, silver light spilling across the grass like the calm before a storm. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls. The sound drifts through the night air, mingling with the low murmur of the wind. Beneath that vast, indifferent sky, the Comanche are at peace, for now. But far beyond the horizon, history is stirring. The age of the open plains is beginning to close, and the first shadows of change are crawling westward. It begins quietly. Wagons creak across the frontier. Settlers, driven by hunger, hope, and lies of endless land, move like ants across a wilderness they do not understand. To them, the plains look empty, ripe for taking. To the Comanche, they are trespassers walking into a storm they cannot imagine. At first, the encounters are small, an ambushed wagon train, a burned cabin, a missing family. To the settlers, it feels like random violence. To the Comanche, it is justice. The land is sacred, not for sale, not for theft, not for plow. But the newcomers do not stop. They keep coming, wave after wave, building towns, fencing rivers, cutting the land into squares. To the Comanche, it is madness, to chain the wind, to tame the wild. They don't see progress, they see desecration. So they strike harder. Raids grow larger, faster, more ruthless. The southern plains burn again. From Texas to Chihuahua, the Comanche ride as they always have, swift, merciless, untouchable. They steal horses by the hundreds, drive off cattle, destroy outposts, vanish before the smoke clears. The settlers call them devils on horseback. The Mexicans call them ghosts. But among themselves, the Comanches see it as balance, the eternal dance of the hunter and the hunted. Yet even the fiercest empire cannot fight the tide forever. The Americans are not the Spanish. They do not fear the plains. They intend to own them. And unlike the empires before them, they bring something new: numbers, guns, and iron. The Colt revolver changes everything. In the old days, a single-shot rifle could not match a Comanche's speed. But now, a man can fire 6 bullets in the blink of an eye. The advantage shifts. The hunter becomes the hunted. Still, the Comanche fight with ferocity that astonishes the new arrivals. In the 1830s and 40s, Texas becomes a graveyard of ambitions. The Republic of Texas fights for its survival not against Mexico, but against the Comanche. Rangers patrol the frontier, learning the art of war from their enemies. They ride hard, shoot fast, strike first. The two greatest horse cultures of the century clash under a merciless sun. It's a war of endurance, and neither side will yield. The Comanche raid deeper, faster, fiercer. Settlements vanish overnight. Entire counties empty. It's as if the land itself rejects civilization. The Rangers strike back, adopting Comanche tactics, mobility, surprise, ruthlessness. The line between savage and civilized blurs until it's nothing but dust in the wind. Each raid, each massacre, each retaliation pulls the frontier deeper into madness. Blood feeds the soil. The plains drink it without remorse. Yet even in war, the Comanche remain proud. To them, courage is the ultimate measure of a man. Death is not defeat, it's destiny. They believe that a warrior's spirit rides on the wind forever. But the world that gives their courage meaning is dying. The buffalo, the heart of the plains, begin to vanish. Once numbering in the millions, they are slaughtered by hunters, by railroads, by greed. Piles of bones bleach under the sun where herds once thundered. For centuries, the buffalo had given the Comanche everything: food, shelter, tools, even their religion. Without the buffalo, their world begins to unravel. Hunger stalks their camps. Winter becomes crueler. The elders whisper that the earth is turning against them. Still, they ride. Still, they fight. Because to stop is to surrender, and the Comanche have no word for surrender. Among them rises a man born between two worlds, a child of both conqueror and conquered. His mother was Cynthia Ann Parker, a white girl taken in a raid and raised as one of the people. His father was a Comanche warrior. His name would become legend, Quanah Parker. Quanah is different. He sees what others cannot, the storm approaching. He rides like a warrior, but thinks like a diplomat. Under his leadership, the Comanche will fight their last great battles, not only for land, but for the right to exist. But before that final act, the empire still breathes. The year is 1850. The American frontier pushes deeper into Texas. Towns rise where buffalo once roamed. The Comanche answer with fire. The raids become desperate, furious. They know the end is coming, even if they cannot name it. They fight not for victory, but for memory, to make sure that when the last rider falls, the wind will still remember their name. The Americans send soldiers, rangers, bounty hunters. They build forts, cut roads, drive iron rails through the heart of the plains. Each mile of track is another wound in the body of the old world. The railroad, the iron horse, cuts through Comancheria like a blade. Trains hull through the night, spewing smoke across the sky. The noise drives the herds away, drives the spirits from the land. The Comanche call it the machine that eats the earth. And in a way, it does. Their freedom shrinks with every mile. The settlers now move faster than horses can chase. The Comanche fight on, but the horizon is closing. The open sky is becoming a map, a grid, a cage. In the camps, old warriors speak of dreams. Dreams where the buffalo vanish, where rivers run red, where the wind grows silent. They sense the end long before it arrives. But pride keeps them riding. Even in defeat, they refuse to kneel. Their raids continue, but each one costs more. More horses, more lives, more blood. And as the years drag on, the balance tilts. For the first time in generations, fear begins to creep into Comanche hearts. They see their children starving. They see the soldiers coming. Columns of blue marching across the plains, armed with rifles, cannons, and railroads. The world is changing faster than even the wind can carry. Yet, in the midst of this collapse, Quanah stands unbroken. He rides across the dying empire, gathering what remains of his people. His spirit is fierce, but his heart is torn. He knows the truth. This war cannot be won. But he also knows something deeper, that surrender is not the same as defeat. He will not let the Comanche vanish. He will transform them, somehow, into something that can survive the storm. The twilight of the Comanche Empire has begun. But even as darkness falls, there is a strange, defiant beauty in it. The last great riders of the plains still gallop under the stars, their hair whipping in the wind, their faces lit by firelight, their songs echoing into the night. They are not gone yet. They are not forgotten. They are still the lords of the southern plains, if only in memory. The wind still blows across the plains, but it no longer carries the sound of thunder. The hooves have fallen silent. The buffalo are gone. The land that once pulsed with life lies wounded, cut by fences, scarred by rails, tamed by hands that never understood it. The Comanche world is dying. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, painfully, like watching the horizon shrink day by day. The camps grow smaller, the horses weaker. The laughter of children fades beneath the hunger in their eyes. Warriors stare into the distance, seeing nothing left to conquer. For generations they had been the storm. Now, the storm has passed. The American army closes in, regiments of blue marching across what was once sacred ground. They come with wagons of supplies, guns that fire faster, cannons that roar louder than thunder. The Comanche fight them anyway. They ambush patrols, strike wagon trains, raid supply lines. Each raid is more desperate than the last, each victory smaller, each loss heavier. They are fighting ghosts now, ghosts of their own greatness. The final campaign begins in the 1870s. The U.S. Army calls it the Red River War. To the Comanche, it is the last ride. Quanah leads what remains of the free bands, the Quahadi, the last to yield. His warriors know they cannot win, but they follow him anyway. Because to them, riding under Quanah is not about survival. It is about dignity, about proving that even in defeat, they are still Comanche. The army hunts them relentlessly, cutting off food, destroying camps, burning every scrap of life they can find. Buffalo hunters, greedy, pitiless men, slaughter what remains of the herds to starve the tribes into submission. Mountains of skulls pile up on the prairie, whitening under the sun like monuments to extinction. The Comanche call it what it is, a war on their soul. By winter, the cold is merciless. Snow buries the plains. Horses die standing. Mothers clutch their children under blankets of hide, praying for warmth that never comes. Hunger gnaws deeper than grief. The drums fall silent. The fires go out. For the first time in centuries, the Comanche stop moving. Quanah looks out over the frozen plains and sees what his ancestors feared most. A world without freedom. He rides one last time, his warriors following him through the snow toward Fort Sill. When he dismounts, the soldiers watch in silence. They expect a broken man. What they see instead is a king walking into exile. Quanah doesn't kneel. He doesn't beg. He stands tall, wrapped in buffalo hide, his eyes hard as flint. He says only that his people are ready to live in peace. Not because they were conquered, but because the world they fought for no longer exists. The war is over. The Comanche lay down their weapons, not in defeat, but in recognition that the earth has turned. The plains are no longer theirs. The age of the horse is gone. The age of the machine has begun. But even as the empire ends, something endures. The spirit that once ruled the winds does not die. It transforms. Quanapaka becomes a bridge between worlds. He learns English, dresses in white man's clothes, speaks in Washington, meets presidents. Yet beneath the hat and coat, his heart beats with the rhythm of the plains. He carries the old fire within him, the fire of his mother, the captive who became Comanche, and his father, the warrior who refused to yield. Under his leadership, the Comanche find a way to live again, not as conquerors of the plains, but as survivors of history. Still, the old warriors never forget. At night, around campfires on the reservations, the elders tell stories of the time when their people rode like gods. They speak of buffalo herds so vast they shook the ground, of raids that painted the horizon red, of a freedom so wild it could not be imagined any more. Children listen, eyes wide, as the past flickers in the flames. They will never see it, but they will remember it. The Comanche are no longer a nation of riders, but they remain a people of memory. And that memory is eternal. The plains themselves seem haunted by it. Stand there today, in the heart of Texas or Oklahoma, and listen closely when the wind rises. You might hear it, the faint echo of hooves, the whisper of laughter, the cry of a war whoop carried through time. It's as if the land remembers, because history does not vanish, it lingers. The Comanche were not erased, they were transformed into legend. A legend written in dust and blood, in sunlight and sorrow. They were the last empire of the open sky, the last riders who answered to no one but the wind. And maybe in some way they still ride. Every gust across the grass, every creak of saddle leather, every echo of thunder, it's their song still playing. The song of a people who refused to bow, who ruled the wild by will alone, who lived and died as free as the horizon. The story of the Comanche is not just the story of their fall. It is the story of freedom itself, its glory, its cost, and its fragility. Empires rise and crumble, nations fade. But freedom leaves an echo that never dies. Listen long enough, and you can still hear it on the wind. The Comanche are gone, but their spirit is not. It rides on, untamed, eternal. What history should we uncover next?